Welcome to GenCon Day 1. This is the drive-in video, so I'm going to go ahead and just go through sort of the plans for today, my goals for the day, etc. On the schedule today is 2 Heroscape events. The afternoon/evening event, which goes off at 5 p.m., is the Reverse the Whip, actually, the double-edged sword. So that event is where you play your army half of the rounds, and then you play against your army the other half of the rounds. So in rounds 1 and 3, you play with your army. Rounds 2 and 4, you play against your army. 425-14, Renegade Contemporary. The army we're going to be playing for that one is going to be Exiles of the Sundered Sea, Necrotech Wraith Riders, Iwashia with Anshu and Kita. So sort of a 3-piece army that just has tools and do a lot of stuff. We have a special attacker, that's always nice. In Iwashia, it doesn't matter nearly as much in the contemporary format as a lot of other formats, but still, just, nice little 6-ranged special attack there. Exiles are an awesome piece, they have a ton of utility, and they're a pretty high-skill unit, so I was basically always dead set on playing them. It's very similar with Necrotech Wraith Riders. They've got a lot of upside into some specific units. They tech amazingly into Exiles, among other stuff. And they're just, a little bit of more of a high-skilled unit when we're dealing with a single unique squad, as opposed to pairing them in their optimal setting. So I think that army gives me a lot of offense and a lot of potential, at the same time being a little bit difficult to sequence and mix your order markers amongst, which is about the best I was able to come up with for Reverse the Whip in a field that's never played Reverse the Whip before, which makes it very difficult to gauge sort of what the power level that you're likely to walk into is. Might be all over the place. So in that context, the tournament itself is going to be a little bit of a crapshoot. Like, we could easily just run into a bring one semi-cheese army in round 1 where someone rolls in with Maladrix and Halusha and just be in a lot of trouble. But sort of the nature of Reverse the Whip, you just have to be okay with that happening at some, portion of the time. The goal is to win it 4-0, but realistically, we have to dodge a lot of matchup roulette in order for that to happen. I feel pretty confident with being able to try to beat my army with most things that I could get handed. So I'm probably more worried about rounds 1 and rounds 3, where I have to play with it. Not that, I can't win with the army, just that someone might roll in with a tier 1 army, and then it's going to be a bit of an uphill challenge. Peace, y'all. Remember that part about needing to avoid hitting a tier 1 Maladrix build in round 1? Yeah, missed that part of the game plan. Whoops. I mean, he did include Gravegrim and Kita instead of Exiles, so I guess it's more like a tier 1.1 Maladrix build. Still, this is just going to be a massive uphill battle for me. I asked him about the strength of his build after the game, and he told me he wanted to practice for day 2 of the main event, which was the next day, and so he ran that army for this event. Well, guess I'm going to be the casualty of that practice. Reverse the Whip is a really incredible format at GenCon, one of my favorites, but that's where there is already an established meta with over a decade of precedent for new players to build upon, but it's really just a terrible format for a new scene with no established meta yet. Because stuff like this just happens and then you're out in round 1 and whoops. Anyways, for the actual gameplay, I think my opponent makes a pretty big mistake by mixing order markers in round 1. In my opinion, he should just rush Mal and the Festering Honor Guard. It's so easy to catch part of my army sleeping, especially with Festering Honor Guard actually being able to get pretty good attacks on sleeping Exiles by virtue of getting 2v2s. But instead of doing 1, 2, 3 all on Maladrix, he ends up putting Order Marker 1 on the Oathbound, Order Marker 2 on Maladrix, and then Order Marker 3 on Gravegrim. And really, this just gives me a chance to set up an established position that I have a chance to do something fun in round 2 with. I'm still definitely the underdog, but I think that I've been granted a fair amount of win rate in this game by virtue of this opening that I shouldn't have had access to, and wouldn't if my opponent had just opened straight Mal. I moved up Iwashia first because I wanted her to be able to take the triangle high ground in round 2, while still being able to throw a special attack that same turn. So I needed the water tile there. I suppose I could have put her one space back of the water to avoid Mal getting height on her, but I figured that if Mal gets height on her before her order marker in round 2, I've just lost the game already anyways, and so it doesn't matter too much. I put order markers 2 and 3 both on the exiles with the intention of moving them on order marker 2 and then using black powder on order marker 3. That part does go according to plan. I get the powder attacks off on order marker 3, and I get the Oathbound on the glyph and one of the Festering Honor Guards, which is probably not enough. I probably needed to get at least 2 of the Festering Honor Guard there to have much of a chance going into round 2. I think that this board state going into round 2 is probably the most interesting point in the game to analyze. Due to the misplayed opening from my opponent, I still have my whole army alive going into round 2, which means that if everything goes right for me, I can still get max offensive output from all my pieces. So the questions then are, A, what does everything going right look like? And B, what order do I want to sequence my pieces in if that happens? So first off, everything going right includes me winning initiative. I can't afford to hedge here against losing a nit, because I need the exiles to put out offense to have any chance at all. So we just assume that we'll win initiative with our order markers and move on from there. I think order marker 1 on exiles feels easy. They're already up there, forward deployed, and can take height for the black powder on order marker 1. They probably would have all gone for Maledrix here, but it's possible I might have targeted an FHG or 2, or maybe even all the FHG. Again, probably Maledrix, but I hadn't 100% made up my mind in-game at that point in time. For order marker 2, I ended up going with the Wraith Riders, actually. I thought that they could take out any FHGs that were left, and could potentially even get height on Maledrix and tie her up on the lava. Because Maledrix would have probably engaged the exiles that would have taken lava on their order marker 1 to get the powder shots down. Order marker 3, I ended up putting on Awashia, and I put the X on Wraith Riders, trying to maybe convince my opponent that I did 2 and 3 on Wraith Riders. But if things had gone according to plan, Maledrix wouldn't have gotten to Awashia yet, as the Wraith Riders would have put up a bit of a pseudo screen on their order marker 2 when they were attacking, and I would have been able to bond with Anshu coming out of the start zone to either attack FHG or block off whatever spot I needed to, and then get the special attack out of Awashia after she hopped up to that triangle height spot to hopefully finish off the last 1 to 2 lives that Maledrix would have had on her at that point in time. However, that's all just theoretical, as in-game I lose initiative, and Maledrix just rolls through my entire army, taking out each order marker before I get a chance to use it. Honestly, there's not a ton of point in reviewing the footage from this point forward, since it was basically just a 0% win state for me, and there's just not too many valuable lessons that can be gained there. So I'm going to play through the footage pretty quickly, give it a little music in the background, while you watch me simply get wiped by Maledrix. Moving on to round 2, and in search of greener pastures. This round is a reverse round, so we are playing each other's armies. The army that I am given is Molten Crustaceans X4, so lava crabs, the first time I've actually ever played them, along with Awashia and Kita, and Glenerva. Now, I have to give Beta Wolf a ton of credit, because this is by far the most interesting lava crab army I have seen to date. This army has a ton of cool play into it, where you have Glenerva protecting the lava crabs on their development turns, and protecting Awashia from getting hit when the lava crabs are developing, and then not Glenerva-ing whenever you're ready for Awashia to be doing her special attack in there. And then, of course, you've got the cool plays where Awashia is able to take lava spots that have been created by the crabs dying and put water on top of those spots to create new little water perches for Awashia that the map didn't have to begin with. So, really cool army design, and it's neat to be able to see the crabs being used in a way that has some actual, interesting play for both sides. So, big props to Beta Wolf there. I make a fairly aggressive Glenerva opening here, wanting to cover a lot of the middle of the field and not have to move Glenerva again because of how long it's going to take to move these damn lava crabs where they have to get to. I almost get max punished for this move. I wasn't expecting quite this aggressive of a Wraith Riders opening, but the Wraith Riders just come in swinging, trying to trade for Glenerva. I get pretty lucky in that the Wraith Riders trade for exactly 4 wounds of Glenerva instead of 5 wounds of Glenerva, and I'm left with a 1-life Glenerva that is still just as powerful as a 5-life Glenerva would be in terms of protecting Awashia and protecting the lava crabs when needed. So I get fairly lucky in that opening exchange there, and it definitely could have gone a lot worse for me. I think if I'd lost Glenerva here in the opening, I almost certainly just lose the game as a result of it. Which probably means that I made a little bit too aggressive of a Glenerva play here, and could have gone with maybe being back just 1 more Hex, just so that the Wraith Riders couldn't be getting height on me. Taking those attacks of 3v3 instead of 4v3 would just increase the survivability of Glenerva a lot, in the long run there. But as it plays out, we do get a little bit lucky and don't get punished for what was probably a little bit of a mistake. So now I'm moving forward with the lava crabs, trying to take out those Wraith Riders as much as possible while getting some decent development on the board. We've taken out that 1 so far with Kita. That was a pretty lucky shot. And now I think Beta Wolf makes a reasonably large mistake. So there's another order marker here on the Wraith Riders, and that first one doesn't go for Glenerva. I'm not really sure why. So the Wraith Riders just don't try to finish off Glenerva here, and I kind of once again get let off the hook. I believe they missed the chain grabs that they went for. I'm not sure which units they were trying to chain grab, but they basically end up just hitting lava crabs here instead, and I am allowed to have Glenerva live for another turn. So I lose that 1 crab, and then that's it for the offensive output that the Wraith Riders have into me. Now I have Awashia and most of the lava crabs into Awashia and really just the exiles. The good part for me here is that Glenerva is an awesome tech piece into both of those things, especially the exiles, because the exiles don't want to be taking all the order markers. They really just want to have 1 per round, and that makes it fairly easy for me to try to predict when they're going to be coming in and use Glenerva to avoid them being able to black powder on the turns where they do take that order marker. That being said, my army is a pretty slow develop. I really do need to get a lot of these lava crabs forward in order to be able to get a lot of value out of them. And so I'm just doing a lot of moving a couple forward and attacking 1 or 2 things, moving a couple forward, developing. The downside to my army is it's really hard for me to hide order markers either, because I pretty much always have the X on Glenerva so that I can use that, which means that if I have an order marker on Awashia, it's a real turn. And if I have 3 order markers on crabs, I can't fake with an order marker on Awashia. So I have to play a little bit face up too, which is a bit of a problem. And it led me to doing a lot of rounds in the middle of this game where I just went crab. Because if I went like crab, Awashia, it's not like crab X Awashia 3. It's just extremely obvious that my 3 is on Awashia, and there's a lot of things that my opponent could do to play around that. So that part is a little bit difficult in terms of hiding my own order markers in this game. So now we see that my opponent's Awashia has made it out fairly far across the map, placed that second water tile, and has a nice little water perch there to be sitting on playing against me. The Exiles, however, have yet to come out to play. While I've gotten most of my lava crabs developed up a bit, my Awashia is not really in a great place herself to be permanently in, but we're just kind of in a little bit of a stasis here now. And once again, I've just got this order marker problem where it's like, I can't hide order markers, so whatever I do is pretty obvious to my opponent. At this point, I make a pretty substantial mistake because I did not realize that lava crabs don't get their dice ability to put lava on the map off of a special attack. So I thought that my vulnerability to Awashi here was a lot less severe, because if she took out those ones on the snow, I would be setting up a really nice perch for my own Awashia to take. However, I was incorrect, having not played lava crabs before, and I should have read their card more carefully. So what we see here is that Awashia just clears out a lot of those lava crabs, and I don't get any lava tiles to show for it, which is definitely unfortunate for me and puts me a little bit back behind the 8-ball again here. So we've seen a pretty aggressive Awashia play now from my opponent, with the Exiles not really coming into play yet. I had expected that the Exiles would have been into the fray by now, a little bit more than they had been. Anyhow, now I have to go and try to catch Awashia, because she is just kind of torturing me in this position. So we're sending out some crabs here, tying up Onshu first in the middle, and advancing a little bit. Throwing some dice at Onshu here. We do get Onshu, that's pretty big, because now we unengage those two lava crabs. And now Awashia's got another order marker on her. She's placed all of her water tiles out at this point in time, so there's no more water tiles that are going to be joining the fray, at least not from that particular Awashia. And then Awashia comes in and, does what she does. Now we're able to finally get next to her, so we get that first crab next to Awashia. And the more we can get next to her, we can avoid that special attack, taking out more than one thing at a time. And we're able to start chucking some dice at Awashia here as well. At this point, we've pretty much tied down Awashia, and now we have to try to finish her off. The problem is we've lost more lava crabs than we should have. So we've only got 5 left on the board at this point in time, which is definitely less than I would have wanted to reach this game state with, mainly because of that misplay earlier where I didn't realize that they didn't get the extra tile boosts off of that, so the trade-off that we made was just not good enough there. But we've now facing Kita in the middle of the map along with Awashia. Really just hoping that this dice trade goes well for us at this point in time. We do have Glenerva still as tech against the Exiles in the late game, so that's going to be quite helpful, probably. Anyhow, going back to this trade-off now, we do lose that one lava crab. We refill its spot, and we're just trying to take out Kita here and keep throwing some dice at Awashia. We do get Kita. That is nice. We free up all those lava crabs, and we continue to put pressure on their Awashia. Going into the next round now, looking to set my order markers, put that one out on Glenerva first. I went 1 on the lava crabs and 2 order markers on Awashia. I think it was order marker 1 on the lava crabs with 2 and 3 on Awashia, but I'm not 100% certain. We'll see if that's what I did. So now we've got from our opponent an order marker on the Oathbound, which is interesting. That's definitely good for us because they're not in a position to get any attacks in yet. So our figures aren't threatened right now. That's pretty sweet. Yep, it was 1 on lava crabs. And now I'm counting out some stuff here, seeing what they can and can't get to. I think I just end up attacking Awashia here. I don't see a ton of merit for just leaving the aura. Like, we really want to be able to keep all these lava crabs within Glenerva's range for the likely exile order marker that's coming. I wish I could tell how many wounds I'd put on Awashia at this point in time. Oh, well, it must have been close because she's now dead. Okay, so I'm guessing Awashia just had the 1 life left going into this round, and that's probably why there weren't any order markers on her. And now we see the Oathbound coming in again. If I remember correctly, I knew at this point in time that the order marker 3 was on Exiles, and so I was able to use my Glenerva X on my next turn to prevent that from doing anything. We'll see if that's what I did or did not do. Anyhow, we have to block some attacks from Oathbound Legionnaires here. They get this first one, which is a lava tile, but in my mind, I'm just seeing a sweet, sweet Awashia perch that I can get my own Awashia to within 2 moves. So now we've got an order marker on Awashia, and we're counting out some stuff. Kita comes in here and does manage to get the kill on that Oathbound, which is pretty big. I go ahead and move my Awashia up to that other Awashia perch, and just take a regular attack down, and take out another Oathbound here. We do put water there. We construct one of the beautiful Awashia perches that we've been trying to set up this whole game. And Awashia is just going to be chilling there now for a little bit. I believe I dropped the X on Glenerva there, but we'll see if there are any exile shots. But I believe what I did at the time was do that regular attack with Awashia and drop the Glenerva X in anticipation of the exiles coming in here. So the exiles do come in. We've taken out most of the Oathbound, so really the exiles are just the only threat that's left. And my opponent was kind enough to set up a beautiful, beautiful line there for Awashia to just throw her attack down, which is exactly what we're going to try and do. We move there, and we take the shot at the line, and we'll see how many we get. The dice are kind of hard to see in this view. I'll have to get better at that in the future. Let's see, I think it's just the one. So my opponent gets bailed out a little bit there in that they could have just easily lost all 3 of those exiles. Anyhow, the exiles do have the next order marker, and now they spread out wisely, as they should. I have my own Kita blocking off that one max height perch at the moment. I believe Kita had attacked that Oathbound when Kita went up there. The main purpose was just to prevent an exile from being able to get up to that height, though. Looks like this is an order marker on the Oathbound, actually, which probably surprised me in game 2, although I don't remember the exact order marker distribution. Anyhow, there's 2 Oathbound left, and they're just going to take the attacks they've got, trying to take out Awashia, because if they take out Awashia, they probably win the game. They don't manage to take out Awashia, which is quite good for me. Very happy about that. And now it's back to me. Kita is able to engage one of the exiles, so the question is just which one. Now they have disengaged, so engaging it on its own isn't that amazing, but we're hoping to get the kill with the 2v2. So we take our Kita shot, we do get it, that's quite big. And then Awashia just stays where she's at and takes out one of those Oathbound. Actually, that was probably a mistake. I think they were in a line if I ran the line through myself. So probably Awashia could have targeted that one and taken out the other one. Unless I did that now. It's a little bit hard for me to tell from this view, but if I didn't target both of them with the line through myself, I think that was a mistake. Regardless, there's 2 exiles coming back in now, and yep, we just have to survive exiles and beat them out. We're definitely the favorite in this board state here, but we do have to actually, still hold. So the exiles spread out. Either the exiles had already used their powder for the round, which is probably the case, or I had thrown the Glenerva X. Either way, that's why that one exile came in and took the regular attack, and I hit the molten lava! Lava crabs are fun. Maybe. Probably. Anyhow, there's now a molten lava tile on the board for some ungodforsaken reason. So no one's going to that height. Actually worked out pretty well for me, because I didn't really want an exile to be going up there anyways, but, I mean, molten lava silliness shouldn't exist. Anyhow, Kita gets this one attack down at that exile, and I believe missed it, and then Awashia took out the other exile. Last round had been called, and the exiles only had one more order marker, and it was impossible for them to get up on points, so that was the end of the game, and I take this one down on partial card scoring at time. Moving on to round 3 now. We are 1-1. We are facing Grayson B now, who has an army that is essentially a 3-piece hero build with Q11, the Oathbound combo, and Queen Kyrion. This is a regular round, so we are playing our own army this time. I decided to open with 1X on the Wraith Riders, 2 on the Exiles, and 3 on Awashia. My thinking here was basically just that I wanted to be able to develop my entire army towards the Wannix side of the map as much as possible, and there's a really nice spot up on Lava where Awashia can get to and potentially get a special attack off on Order Marker 3 while dropping a water tile on Lava. Meanwhile, my opponent also opened with split order markers, so from that army we see 2 order markers on the Oathbound combo, 1 on Queen Kyrion and 1 on Q11. So we don't have to be worried about any kind of a Q11 opening rush or an Oathbound opening rush, which were possibilities, but once we see those order markers, we can rule that out. And yeah, so because of that, we just develop as safely and carefully as we can. I moved up all of the Wraith Riders to be next to that jungle bush there, in case Q11 got a shot or 2 off on them. Might as well give them that extra defense boost. I moved up Kita to where Kita could get up to the lava height or take Wannick, and moved Awashia up to that spot I was talking about before. This is after the Exiles moved up, but none of them had a target for this turn, so it didn't end up mattering. Going into round 2, I wanted to get as much value out of my Wraith Riders as I could, and really the only piece that they're good into is Queen Kyrion. So I decided to put 1-2 on Wraith Riders and do that as the opening going into round 2. It also has the nice benefit that if we can take out Kyrion there, it prevents Kyrion from doing annoying things to Awashia, which she definitely can do, being a hero killer designed figure. So I do end up putting 1-2 order markers there, and then I put my other 2 order markers split between Exiles and Awashia, keep a little bit of guesswork going there. My opponent also splits order markers here with the same distribution as they had in round 1. So not much information we can glean there. I win initiative, and my first order marker is, of course, on the Wraith Riders. So right now I'm counting out the best way to try to get all these Wraith Riders into Kyrion. There's a little bit of a trade-off here because I can set it up to where if I hit the first chain grab, I get the best possible combo of attacks, which is 2 from height, 1 from even ground. But if I do that, then if I miss the first chain grab, I'm not going to be able to get that third attack. So that's the decision point that I'm sort of oscillating back and forth on here. I ended up just going for the maximum upside play here. Part of the reason I end up doing this is because I wanted to have 2 of the Wraith Riders up on max lava height there, because I knew I had the order marker 2 on them, so I decided it was worth it just to have them up on max height, even if I missed the first chain grab. But that being said, I hit the chain grab, which was awesome, and we get to pump all 3 attacks into Kyrion here. 2 attacks of 4v4 and 1 3v4. And we use some wounds to Kyrion here. So our opponent has order marker 1 on Q11. And what we're going to see here in a second is Q11 hopping up to that max lava height opposite the Wraith Riders, and then just pumping out as much attack as he can into them. Q11's able to get his max offensive output from the special attack here by doing 3 attacks, 1 of 4, 1 of 2, 1 of 3. And so that's what we're going to see here from Q11 into the Wraith Riders. The attack of 4 does go through and kill that first Wraith Rider. And then we're going to end up blocking the other 2 attacks, the attack of 3 and the attack of 2. And then our order marker 2 is on the Wraith Riders. And the question here is just, what do we do with them? They're both engaged already with Kyrion. I end up just deciding to rotate him to height and take the attacks down on Kyrion. I thought there might be an order marker on her still that I was able to take out if I kill her on this turn. And even if the order marker is on Oathbound, we have height. We're in a decent position, being up there to potentially block some Oathbound attacks. So it's take height and then attack down. We do end up getting Kyrion, which is good. And that's our turn. It is on Oathbound, and Oathbound is going to come in here, doing a little bit of figure manipulation to make sure he can fit. And then Oathbound ends up just pumping out the 4x3 special attacks up. And that's going to kill 1 Wraith Rider, and the other one stays unwounded as a result of these set of attacks here. And then my 3 is on Exiles, and really all we can do here is just powder into the Oathbound, try to put as many wounds on it as possible, potentially remove some of those Oathbound Legionnaire Exile thingamabobbers off of him. And so that's what we're doing here. We're counting out where we can go to and how we can set this up. The main thing to avoid here is the Oathbound Phalanx getting multiple attacks off on different Exiles without having to split and take those Legionnaires off of himself to get to them. So I didn't want to have 2 of them right next to each other in a spot where Oathbound could just hit multiple of them, at least without giving me a really good positioning. So I do end up putting those 2 exiles in the bottom there next to each other, but Oathbound has to come off a height to get there and potentially take an LEA. At least from my perspective, because I still thought the 3 might be on Kyrion here. Possibly a mistake there with the exiles, but I don't hate it, because if he does take low ground there, it's going to be a lot easier to finish him off. And then I just throw the 4 attacks into Oathbound and do a couple wounds, and took off 2 of the exile markers as well. Now we're seeing the 3 on Oathbound, who is going to pop off the remainder of those 2 Legionnaires and take some attacks here. Oathbound does get that last Chain Fighter, which was a little bit unfortunate for us because he's no longer locked up going into the next round. And then those 2 Legionnaires come through, and they're going to attack onto the exiles. We end up losing one of the 2 exiles, which could be a lot worse, so not too bad there, all things considered. And then after these attacks, my opponent is going to have some lava rolls. Both Q11 and the Phalanx are up on lava height. Q11 is going to take the lava wound, and the Oathbound is going to be safe. So the Oathbound still exists, but we do the wound on Q11, which is awful nice. Going into round 3 now, in terms of order marker placement, I end up putting 3 order markers on Awashia and 1 on Exiles. I was hoping to make it look like all of my order markers were on Awashia, so that if I had lost initiative, there was a chance that the Oathbound and maybe the Legionnaires sort of bypass the Exiles and just go for Awashia. But I didn't want to have my order markers spread out as much as I had before, because then that would have incentivized him trying to take out my individual order markers one at a time, whereas I really just wanted him to try to rush Awashia. I ended up having the X on Awashia and the 2 on Exiles, which might have been an unnecessary risk, but it had a lot of upside in that it allowed the Exiles to potentially get a lot of shots at Q11, if that was still around. But anyhow, this is the 1 on Awashia right now. We do win initiative, which is always nice here. And then we bring up Onshu. Onshu is going to block that hided spot because I'm going to want to move Awashia next to it on the same turn. Onshu also happens to just get really dumb lucky here, though, and take out both of the Legionnaires, so that was pretty sick. And then we move Iwashi up 1 spot, sling that special attack at the Phalanx, and it goes through to deal the last wound. So we get really lucky on this turn and just take out everything. And put a water tile up there underneath Onshu, where we're trying to give Iwashi a spot for the future. My opponent's order marker 1 is burned because the Oathbound are now dead. And this is where I had the 2 on Exiles. Part of my thinking here as well was that I really wanted to get Exiles over to Wannick. I don't know that that thinking is super solid, because I could have just sent Kita over to Wannick if I had the 2 on Awashia. So this may have just been an unnecessary risk of an order marker, frankly, but it is what we did in game anyways, even if I don't love it now. And we end up getting 2 powdered shots off on Q11. This is, in all likelihood, the last time we're going to be taking any meaningful attacks with the Exiles. That last one wants to just sit on Wannick for the rest of the game, given that all our opponent has left is Q11 with 3 life. Wannick wounds are at a premium here. Q11 now is going to go shoot at those Exiles that are being a pain. And we're going to see the special attack of 4, 3, and 2 attacks. The first Exile is going to die to the attack of 4, and I believe that's the only wound that I take here. Yes. Okay. And then my 3 is on Awashia, and I end up sending Onshu in here to engage Q11. 2 major goals here are to keep Q11 potentially on lava, which would be awesome. Lava wounds are at a premium too for 6 defense, low life figure. We don't do any wounds with the actual Onshu attacks, but it also prevents Q11 from, potentially getting up to attack Awashia, force him to take an LEA if he wants to go away. I end up backing Awashia up here instead of going forward because I didn't want to incentivize Q11 to take 1 LEA and just go kill Awashia. If he happened to just roll 5 for 6 or something and one-shot Awashia, it would have been a really unfortunate way to let my opponent get back into the game here. So I took the more conservative play, and then Q11 just swings the giant hammer and murderizes poor Onshu there. But it does keep him on lava, and then Q11 happens to take both the lava wounds and the Wannick wound, which is massive. Going into round 4 now, my absolute only goal is to prevent Q11 from stopping me from rolling Wannick. I basically win the game if I can roll for Wannick, so that's all we play for. All of my order markers are set up just to try to get new figures sort of moving that direction. My opponent wins initiative, and Q11 starts to work his way over that direction. This is where my opponent makes a fairly major mistake, however. They go for the special attack, but they attack that exile first. And the exile hits stealthy, which lets him move 3 spaces, which can engage Q9, which is then going to prevent Q9 from attacking anybody else. Because Q9 can't attack the same figure more than once, and you can't attack a figure you are not engaged with if you are engaged. So this prevents Q11 from being able to shoot at that last exile with the 2v2. And we just call a judge over here to confirm the ruling, so I backed up the figure to explain it to the judge, who agrees with this interpretation, and the exile blocks it. My next order marker is on Awashia. I send up Kita. The only goal was to tie up Q11, but Kita actually just gets stupid lucky and the 3v6 goes through, ending the game. Moving on to round 4, I am matched up against Sir Heroscape, and this is a reverse round, so we play each other's army. So he gave me the Tanuki build, and that is what I get to play. Now, I think, in hindsight, I made a pretty big mistake with this opening that we'll see here in a minute. I had decided ahead of time that I wanted to use the blimp to see how it went. I'd never played it before. And so I put my order marker 1 on it, which, to be clear, I still think is fine. But the problem is, when I lose initiative, and Sir H has all these order markers on the Wraith Riders like he does, I can still move the blimp, but I should not be moving these 3 Tanuki with him. I could have just left them where they are behind and then gone in for an initiative switch, or at least tried to play to where he doesn't get to my Tanukis until later in round 1. As it is, I gave him height on 1 for free, and I gave him the ability to chain grab some other dudes without overextending nearly as far as he otherwise would have, and he's able to come in here and just take full advantage of that. So yeah, I think this is a pretty clear mistake. If I'd won initiative, I think this move is fine. But having lost initiative and with these guys already in my face, I should have just left those Tanukis behind and did a little bit of a screen with the blimp in this spot to prevent Wraith Riders from getting 2 to 3 attacks on Tanukis here. It ends up only being 2 attacks instead of 3, and only one of them goes through because Sir H missed the chain grab for the 3rd attack. But still, this was a mistake. Given the game state as played, however, now we simply have to throw Tanukis forward and deal with these Wraith Riders that are in our face. You know, given how Tanukis work, we can try to knock them down to get height, and then get some heighted attacks on them. If we can knock them down, we're getting 4v3s, and that's pretty good. In terms of Sir Heroscape's opening in the game, though, I feel like I would have opened Awashia instead. I'm not sure necessarily that that's better or this is wrong, but it's not how I would have thought about approaching the game. An Awashia opening would have allowed the Wraith Riders to never have to take that turn where they develop and don't attack. They would have been able to simply come in whenever they were ready to come in once I got close enough, because Awashia was going to force me to come in towards her because she outranges my Tanukis. At least that's what I was conceptualizing when I developed the army. That doesn't necessarily mean it's right, or that would have been the higher EV play, but that was the way I was generally thinking about using my army. That being said, sometimes just sending it out in waves can definitely be better, or certainly near the same expected value. Regarding the blimp figure, I tried hard to get value out of him this game. I really did. It seems like he should work with Tanukis, but in practice, it's just not good. I mean, even taking that order marker 1 on him, I got to move 3 Tanukis, when if I'd just taken the order marker on Tanukis instead, I could have moved 4 Tanukis, and they could have gone to more varied spots and spread out more and not had to have given up height if I did want to push them forward, even though I think that was wrong, as I said in hindsight. So yeah, just as designed, that blimp is not good. It'll be interesting to see how much he goes down to in Delta. I guess we can leave it there for now. But it was hard to get value out of him in this game. Going into round 2, I just put all the order markers on Tanukis. Decided it wasn't worth trying to develop the blimp more at this point in the game. thought that getting 4 Tanuki activations towards whichever wave was going to come next would be more valuable. And it's the more flexible option depending on what Sir Heroscape goes with for his order markers as well. He has a lot of options with how he could either mix his units that are left or just bring in a second wave that's sort of all on its own. TBD, from my perspective here, we do see that Owashia is up and ready to move. And so Kita goes ahead and moves first, and Owashia follows. Fairly reasonable things. I think there's still one Wraith Rider left on the board, if I'm understanding the game state watching it back correctly. If so, I probably would have put the 1 on the Wraith Rider as Sir H just to try to get value out of it, given that Owashia getting to that spot early wasn't necessarily going to force me to come in any earlier than I wanted to, but it's not a huge difference. And I move some Tanuki forward and do kill that last Wraith Rider. So, yep, that was indeed a Wraith Rider. And the Wraith Riders are now all gone. I remember in-game that I set up at some point in time an Owashia chain that was a little bit too good for what I was giving up. I don't remember exactly when it comes up. If I notice it, I'll point it out, but I definitely remember that being another mistake in-game as well. This one was full of mistakes for me. But we have Anshu coming up now, taking a few attacks. I don't believe Owashia has a shot here, if I'm counting out the spacing correctly. And, yep, so it's my 2 now. So we are on Tanukis again. Looks like I'm counting out a bunch of stuff. We'll see what I actually went with in this spot. Anshu's not a huge threat, but if Anshu does kill Tanukis, it's quite a bit frustrating. So it looks like we're just throwing some dice up at Anshu here at max 4 range, staying out of Owashia. I think in-game, this next turn is the one that I messed up, or I left it open. I had really only counted the spaces out from where Owashia was at, but Owashia is able to just step 1 forward and then fling the same spectral attack at me. So we'll see if that's what happens on this turn, but I do remember that in-game. We'll see if it comes to fruition. And Anshu comes out being very aggressive. Possibly too aggressive. It's going to be easy enough for me to get height on Anshu by knocking it down this next order marker. And yeah, Owashia does just step off. Sort of low on water tiles, but that's fine. It's not like I'm going to get to her that quickly. Well, I can get 1 Tanuki to her if it survives. Let's see. I remember this being a pretty good attack, though. I wish I could read those meat dice. And yeah, it looks like I lose 2 of the 3 Tanukis with the last one rolling good defense. So, that was the chain that I remember setting up then. That was definitely wrong. So I had misthought that through in-game. Pretty clear mistake. So I'm short a few more Tanukis than I should be here now, due to that self-inflicted wound. I just rolled the Tanukis forward and do my best to take out Anshu here. I felt like I had to take out at least those 2 attacks per turn. If I can space better moving forward and get Anshu gone, then I should be able to limit myself to losing 1 Tanuki, assuming I actually play it correctly. So we are attacking Anshu, and we do get her, which is nice. Using the Tanuki's movement, we get that last Tanuki over towards Wanik. Not a huge issue, given that Sir H has a lot of places to put the Wanik wounds, but it's always nice to start that countdown timer on Wanik, and it gets that Tanuki out of line range for the targets that Owashia could hit. And we spread out our Tanukis as much as possible, now more aware of the Owashia threat than I was before. Funny how making a mistake and losing a bunch of figures to that mistake makes you that much more aware of it. Going into the next round, I ended up doing 1-2-X on Tanuki this round with the 3 on the blimp. Honestly, this was probably another mistake. I probably should have just left the blimp alone until late game. I don't know, the blimp is not good. I had some thoughts that the blimp would be able to move Tanukis that were on its landing spot, which is incorrect. That is not how it worked. So I had thought when I set the order markers that the blimp would be able to pick up a Tanuki that's on lava and move it off of lava. if the blimp landed on the spot where that Tanuki was, but that is in fact not how the blimp works. The blimp works by choosing its landing spot, landing, and then placing the other things, so if there's already a figure there, it prevents that from happening. But we'll get to that game state in a moment. For now, we've just got Tanukis battling with Kita and Awashia. We just got Kita there, always nice. And Awashia is just sort of hiding in the back behind a bunch of water spots, which makes some sense. It's hard for me to get there. It's hard for me to knock Awashia off of that. I had sent one Tanuki around the far side to flank around that right side. Now we have Awashia coming back. Tanukis have some nice play into Awashia in that if they can knock her off of that water height spot, it's actually -2 defense to Awashia, in addition to +1 attack for the Tanukis, because Awashia loses the water defense and the height defense, and then Tanukis gain height. So if you can pull off that combo, it's really strong, which is what I was aiming for. But now we see my order marker 3 with that blimp, with me not understanding how it worked, and really all I could do after I realized the mistake was just throw the blimp up there as far forward as possible to make it more of a threat moving into future rounds. At this point, I think I'm fairly behind in the game state, so I decide to take a bit of a risk and send the blimp in again on order marker 1. The risk is if I lose initiative, I won't be able to hit this juicy spot, but if I win initiative, I can hit 2 exiles and an Oathbound, which is a really juicy target. So I go ahead and ship the 1 there and have the 2/3 on Tanuki, hoping to take out a bunch of stuff and block up all the exiles. I do manage to win initiative here, which is quite massive, and we send in the blimp, and then we roll 2 out of 5, which is not what we wanted, but quite possibly enough. That second dice was off screen there, and Sir H proceeds to 2 for 2 off the first one, and 2 for 3 off the second exile. So both exiles block. We get the Oathbound, but it doesn't matter too much. The exiles surviving there is pretty much going to be the game for us because they have disengage and they can now go just shoot up Tanukis, which is what's about to happen. Have I mentioned how bad the blimp is yet? So not only did it fail there, but it took a wound in doing so and it can't move for the rest of the round. My god, that is a bad figure. Anyway, I'm playing through the rest of this at a little bit faster of a speed just because there's not a whole lot of point in talking through the strategic decisions here. I'm trying to get as much value as possible out of the Tanukis, but Sir H just has too much left for 3 or 4 Tanukis or however much is left on the board to do much. Actually, I think it's 2 Tanukis now. I think it was 3 at the beginning of the round and 2 now. Whichever. The exact numbers don't matter a ton. I'm just very short on Tanukis, and the blimp is a sitting duck for whenever Sir H decides to go back for it. So, Awashi has still got that nice perch. She's taken a couple of wounds to this point in time. I actually think she's at 1 life left now. But, I mean, it doesn't matter. Again, he's just got way too much stuff for me to get through here. So, for the most part, this is a formality. There's an exile sitting on Wanik 2, so we're going to take that wound. And we've just got this blimp that, again, just can't do much. And, yep, so the blimp is going to die shortly into the next round, which we will see here momentarily. That is it. And we fall in this game, and we fall to 2-2 overall on this tournament. Fun tournament, despite all of my complaints throughout. I will say, I think that the 4th game was my worst played by far. There were a lot of decision points in that game I'd like to have back upon rewatching. If you enjoyed this, let me know. If you didn't enjoy this, let me know. I'm very new to this. This is my first time trying out this type of content, so any feedback would be greatly appreciated. If you got this far in the video, thanks a lot, and I hope you enjoyed it. Peace, y'all.